Shabbat Shalom, everybody, and welcome. We're coming to you from our beautiful sanctuary. I'm Rabbi Javier Carapan, and I am joined by Leslie Zucker and our technical team. If you're joining us on Facebook Live and would like to say hello, you can say hi by typing Shabbat Shalom in the comments. Click return. There also you can find links to the prayer pages and other information during the service. If you're watching us on the virtual sanctuary, the links to the PDF are above the player, and all other links are in the e-news that you received yesterday. Special thank you to our digital docents who are managing our streaming. But if you have any problems with the electronic piece,
What should I do?
technological help, we have you covered. Text 913-303-1134. That is CBT's technical assistance line, TAL, and a member of our docent group will call you as soon as they can. So again, Shabbat Shalom and welcome everybody. On page 288, we continue with Mode Ani, and we have a beautiful background today. We always comment about it. It keeps changing, and now, unlike last week, we have a heat wave. It's almost 22 degrees here in the Kansas City area, and the sun is out, and I hope you're having some plans to be outdoors this weekend.
I took my walk this morning.
Wonderful. And we're thankful to be back together on this Shabbat. Mode Ani, page 288.
Mode ani lefanecha, melech chai v'kayam, v'nefezalta fi nishmati v'chema, v'chema, Rabba emunatecha, Rabba emunatecha, Mode ani lefanecha, melech chai v'kayam, v'chezalta fi nishmati v'chema, v'chema, Rabba emunatecha, Rabba emunatecha, Rabba emunatecha.
We continue together on page 291 as we join in the middle of the page. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe. With divine wisdom, you have made our bodies, combining veins, arteries, and vital organs into a finely balanced network. Wondrous maker and sustainer of life, were one of them to fail, how well we are aware we would lack the strength to sustain life before you. Blessed are you, Adonai, source of our health and strength. Baruch atah Adonai, rofeh chol basar umafli la'asot.
Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehoahi. Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehoahi. Elohai neshama shenatata
page 293, we join together as we offer these blessings for our daily miracles, Nisim Shbechol Yom, page 293.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lesech vivina lehavchin ben yom uvein laila.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, pokeach ivrim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, matir asurim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, zokef kefufim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, rokah haaretz al hamayim.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, המכין מצעדי גבר.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, malbish achumim.
אמן. ברוך אתה, אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, הנותן ליהב כוח.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, המעביר שינה מעיני ותנומה מאף אפי.
אמן. ברוך אתה, אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, שעשני בצלם אלוהים.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, שעשני בת חורים.
אמן. ברוך אתה, אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, שעשני ישראל.
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, עוזר ישראל בגבורה.
אמן. ברוך אתה, אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, עוטר ישראל בתפארה.
Amen.
In the middle of page 302, we join together in Tzaddik Katamar.
Tzadik katamar yifra,
Eretz Galvanon, Galvanon yizke, shetori, bebeit Adonai, bechatzot Eloheinu, yafichu, od beseva, Eshenim berananim iyu lehagid, ki yashar Adonai zuri velo On page 306, we conclude this section of Pezukei de Zimbra, Psalms of Praise, by singing together Psalm 150, Hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
Shama Te'aleya.
We continue on page 307. Nishmat kol chai tevarech et shimecha Adonai Eloheinu. Let the soul of everything alive bless your name, Adonai, our God. In the spirit of all flesh, glorify and exalt your name forever, O sovereign. Transcending space and time, you alone are God. You are the unique sovereign who is Redeemer and Savior, God of the first and the last, God of all creatures, Master of all generations, who is praised in a multitude of praises, who guides the world with abundant loving kindness, and all creatures with mercy. Adonai neither slumbers nor sleeps. We continue on page 314. The world is sunlight, restoring the soul, rejoicing the heart, bringing light to the eyes. We are more welcome than gold, a Torah from heaven. I have no light to give the morning, my Torah. My special human gift is words. As I bring my words forth from silence, welcome them, you who redeems the sun from darkness. Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer HaMeot. Or chadash al Tzion ta'ir, al Tzion ta'ir. Or chadash al Tzion ta'ir, al Tzion ta'ir. בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בעיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך, למען תזכרו, ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם,
אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
אמת. On page 322, together we join in singing Mi Chamocha. Mi Chamocha va'elim Adonai, Mi Chamocha nedar b'kodesh, Nora te'ilot, Osef elev, Osef elev, Shira chadasha, Shir לשמך על שפתיה, יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות, אוסף אלה. As we come to our Amidah, our standing prayer, silently we will go through our prayer book through page 337. We'll also invite you at home to, or wherever you're watching us, maybe you're walking. We invite you to also offer a meditation, a special prayer during this time. We begin together with Tzur Yisrael on page 322. Tzur Yisrael, Kuma be'ezrat Yisrael, Ufdechinu mecha Yehuda ve'Yisrael, Go'aleinu Adonai tzvaot shemo, Kedosh Yisrael.
Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'o Yisrael. Adonai sifetai tiftachu fi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise.
Sim Shalom Tova Uveracha Sim Shalom Tova Uveracha Sim Shalom Tova Uveracha Sim Shalom Tova Uveracha Chen v'chesed Chen v'chesed v'rachamim Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael Amecha Sim Shalom Tova Uveracha Sim Shalom Tova Uveracha. On page 367, we continue with a service for the reading of the Torah with Romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu le'ar kodosho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu le'ar kodosho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu le'ar kodosho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu le'ar kodosho. You know, as I was doing this, I wonder how durable these things are.
We've been using them for a few years. I mean, that's what they're made for, because they are made to get that sound when you hit it against a hand is different than the sound when you just shake it in the air.
Well, I was hitting my ring, and I
Oh,
wonder
well.
if it's gonna. It'd be a nice video to have. It'd be all caught on video. Yeah. Wow, that would have been something.
Now you're going to think about that every time you play those.
I already have. You can find links to our reading in the e-news and also in the comments below. We are reading from the Haftarah this Shabbat. And the reason for that is, not a lot of reason that that's what I want to do, but there is actually, there is a system to the madness, they say, right? Something like that.
Method to the madness.
Method to the madness. Last Shabbat, we began the series of 4 special haftarot and maftirim for the Torah portion. Now, the maftir is the initial section of the Torah portion at the very end. If you're in a traditional congregation, we will read on Shabbat 7 aliyot, 7 portions, plus a maftir, the additional one. And normally the person who comes up for the honor of the maftir aliyah is also the person who is going to do the blessings for the haftarah and the reading of the haftarah. That's kind of what it means.
Ah.
And in a traditional setting, that is what the bar or bat mitzvah would do on their Shabbat when they become a bar mitzvah.
Yes.
They do the maftir and the haftarah. So, for this 4 Shabbatot, beginning on the first Shabbat of Adar and continuing to the Shabbat right before the full moon of the Pesach Shabbat, we have 4 special Shabbatot. Now, Pesach is on the 15th, so the Shabbat before Pesach has a different, it doesn't have a special haftarah. It's called Shabbat Hagadol, the big Shabbat. but it doesn't get a special treatment other than being called that. But these 4 Shabbatot have a special one. Last week was Shabbat Shekalim. This week is Shabbat Zachor. And it's called so because the Maftir comes from Deuteronomy 25, 17 to 19, and it begins with the words, Zachor, remembered what Amalek did to the people on their way out of Egypt, and we are to blot out the memory of Amalek from under the heaven. Do not forget. And partially what they did, Amalek and his group did to the escaping Jews from Egypt, is that they attacked the ones who were at the back, usually the weakest among the people. Although if you've been on, I think, scouting and other things, they always tell you, you put a strong person at the end of a trick,
Possibly because of this.
Because of this, exactly. We learn from our mistakes, right? You don't leave the people in the back unattended. So, and there is a connection between this Shabbat Zachor and the upcoming holiday of Purim. Now, the Haftarah functions in this context as a prototype of divine protection against the enemies throughout the ages, because the connection between the book of Esther and the story of Zachor, the story of the Amalekites, it's made actually in the Haftarah, and the Haftarah we're reading is from the book of Samuel, and it talks about King Saul defeating Amalek king, the Amalek king, the king of the Amalekites, if you want to call them. That's a good word. And so, but inside the story itself, Saul makes apparently a mistake. And I say apparently because Saul doesn't see it that way. We'll read this section together. And it is that God had commanded through Samuel that he should go and basically destroy everything in the city of the Amalekites, which will include the king, Agag, and also all the beasts and everything. It should not take any spoil from this. And Saul defeats them, but he leaves a few animals alive, and he leaves Agag alive. And so the story we'll read in the Torah, in the Haftarah, we'll talk about specifically Samuel expressing displeasure through a dream he had from God to Saul, saying, you didn't really obey God, therefore, this is a problem. Now, it's a problem for Saul, and that would have been the end of the story, but the Midrash takes this a step further. So, and in the JPS commentary, we find the following, that, Saul is the son of Kish, who comes from the tribe of Benjamin. And Mordechai is also from the tribe of Benjamin. And the book of Esther traces the line to Saul's father. All right? So here, Saul and Mordechai are related. And just as the Israelite king defeats Amalek and its king Agag, so that's the later hero of the Jews falls the plot of Haman,
Boo.
as he's always called, the Agagite. So the term Agagite
right.
means the Amalekite.
I never made that connection.
So what happens, though, is later rabbinic traditions was not content to leave the connection at the literary level, but developed a legend, and this is a midrash, that between the capture of Agag by Saul and his execution by Samuel, because eventually Samuel does what God had told Saul to do. He sired a child whose descendant was Haman
Boo.
himself. Thus, this is the crux of why what Samuel did was so bad and how it affects Purim. What Saul failed to complete, Mordechai achieved for future generations. In other words, if Samuel would have done his job, we would not have Purim. I don't know if I like that, because I kind of like Purim, so I don't know.
But that's also assuming that nobody else would have been a jerk.
That's correct. But there is this whole love and hate thing in this week's Haftarah in particular, and in that indictment in the book of Deuteronomy. Remember what Amalek did, never forget. And this is a puzzling, really, point in the whole story. Now, on the one hand, yes, we are supposed to take revenge on the Amalekites, and Saul does as much as he can, but he is forbidden to show any mercy towards them, which many of us may have an issue with that, right? There's no possibility for mercy. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs puts it in a different context, but I think it's the same issue here. And he makes a comparison between what the Torah says about the Egyptians and what it says about the Amalekites. So about the Egyptians, it says, do not hate an Egyptian because you were a stranger in his land. But about the Amalekites, it said, blot out their name. So why does Moses tell the Israelites, in effect, to forgive the Egyptians, but not the Amalekites? This really is the question. Is this something that the Amalekites did that we're not actually seeing in the plain meaning of the text? And what Rabbi Sachs suggests is perhaps something that it's difficult to, I think, swallow, but I'm going to try to bring it to our interpretation today, because I think it may have, at least, it may explain the difference between the Egyptians and the Amalekites. And he talks about the difference between rational and irrational hate.
Okay.
Now, if you remember the story which we just read about the deliverance from Egypt, the Egyptians, Pharaoh in particular, was fearful of the Israelites because they were strong. Now, was he justified in hating them? No. But you can see that it was rational. In other words, that you could see that if he perceived the Israelites growing to a point that it was worrisome, and then if you know that Egypt had been invaded by tribes of Semites, Canaanites coming into Egypt, you can see, oh, well, there might be a reason for this. And Rabbi Sachs proposes that if the hate is rational in that sense, then you can reason with people.
Okay.
That you can explain to them that, well, not really, you're not justified. We're not really here to steal anything. We rather actually leave, And so, because the Jews leave, and all the fears of the Egyptians, and this is kind of an interesting point, look at it from the point of the Egyptians, all the fear the Egyptians had did not materialize. They don't hate them anymore. So Don't go back to Egypt, but forgive the Egyptians. I mean, they were sort of maybe justified in that. But Rabbi Sachs proposes that the hate from the Amalekites is more like the irrational hate. and I don't want to go all the way to the modern times, but it is more like anti-Semitism. And he calls the hate of the Egyptians xenophobia.
Okay.
I don't know if I see the difference, but I can see the distinction that people may be distrustful of the stranger, but through, if you want, diversity education and getting to know each other, those things could be, the bridge could be
So basically, it's
Yeah.
the fear of the stranger versus the fear of that stranger.
correct.
Got
And the problem is that anti-Semitism has so many, and this is very popular these days, conspiracy theories, that you can't really reason with people who are believing in these conspiracy theories. I mean, you
Right.
can, but it won't get you very far. So if it's so irrational, and what does he say, Rabbi Jack Six thinks that this was irrational? Because they went after the weakest. They weren't really,
Oh,
if you are fearful of the power and the strength of a people, why are you going to attack the infirm, the children, and the women who might have been at the back? That just sounds so irrational. And so in that paradigm, then, it's not that we never can forgive, but certainly we should never forget. And of course, then he goes into the story of anti-Semitism, which I'm not going to do today. But there is something to the idea that that Amalek represents the irrational hate of Jewish people throughout the generation. And as such, that's something we should always remember, that it's out there. And I think the solutions are very complex, because the problem is very complex. So it's not just sitting there with someone, an anti-Semite, and explaining it to them. So, what the Torah sees is a big difference between the Egyptians and I don't know that I will call the Egyptians rational hate. I guess I will call them, one is irrational and the other one is off the charts irrational kind of thing. They're both kind of irrational because they're not really justifiable, because they make blank statements about the Jews. So that at least gives me a time, or at least a space in my head to put this, that sounds more like a vendetta, like, revenge against the Amalekites, just because they are Amalekites. It's like we're doing to them what they did to us. But I think that there is something essentially different about the Amalekites, and that's why they're part of this moment of remembrance. And we remember them every Shabbat before we go to Purim. We will be reading from the first book of Samuel. We are beginning on chapter 15. 15. Yeah, the reading is slightly different. We don't have the blessings for you, but if you know the Haftarah, no, we don't have the blessings. They're not in the PDF, but we'll cover them together. So we begin on chapter 15, verse 13, and we go through verse 31. And this is basically the recapitulation of the whole story by Samuel to Saul, after Samuel spends the night troubled about what Saul did, or basically did not. And this is basically the unraveling of the story of Saul, and from here on, the anointed one is David, although it's not out in the open yet. So if you have our prayer book, if you're following us on the just regular prayer book, you can find the Haftarah blessings on page 372. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'neviim tovim ורצה ודבריהם הנאמרים באמת. ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בתורה ובמשה עבדו ובישראל עמו ובנביאי האמת והצדק.
Amen.
When Samuel came to Saul, Saul said to him, Blessed are you of the Lord, Baruch atah Adonai. Hakimoti et dvar Adonai. He's really excited. I have fulfilled God's command. Then what, demanded Samuel, is this bleating of sheep in my ears and the lowing of oxen that I hear? Saul answered, They were brought from the Amalekites, for the troops spared the choicest of the sheep and oxen for sacrificing to Adonai your God, and we prescribe the rest. Samuel said to Saul, Stop. Let me tell you what Adonai said to me last night. It's not looking good, I tell you. Speak, he replied. And Samuel said, You may look small to yourself, but you are the head of the tribes of Israel. Adonai anointed you king over Israel, and Adonai sent you on a mission saying, Go and proscribe the sinful Amalekites, make war on them until you have exterminated them. Why did you disobey Adonai and swoop down on the spoil in defiance of Adonai's will? Saul said to Samuel, But I did obey Adonai. I performed the mission on which Adonai sent me. I captured King Agag of Amalek, and I proscribed Amalek. And the troops took from the spoil some sheep and oxen, the best of what had been proscribed, and sacrificed it to Adonai your God at Gilgal. But Samuel said, Thus Adonai delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as much as in obedience to Adonai's command. Surely obedience is better than sacrifice, compliance than the fat of rams. For rebellion is like the sin of divination, defiance like the iniquity of teraphim, because you rejected Adonai's command. God has rejected you as king. So
Wow.
Saul said to Samuel, I did wrong to transgress the Adonai's commands and your instructions, but I was afraid of the troops and I yielded to them. Please forgive my offense and come back with me, and I will bow low to Adonai. But Samuel said to Saul, I will go back with you. I will not go back with you, for you have rejected Adonai's command, and Adonai has rejected you as king over Israel. And Samuel turned to leave. Saul seized the corner of his robe, and it tore. And Samuel said to him, Adonai has this day torn the kingship over Israel away from you and has given it to another who is worthier than you. Moreover, the glory of Israel does not deceive or change God's mind. For God is not human that God should change God's mind. But Saul pleaded, I did wrong. Please honor me in the presence of the elders of my people and in the presence of Israel, and come back with me until I have bowed low to Adonai your God. So Samuel followed Saul back, and Saul bowed low to Adonai. Yeah, it didn't go very well for Saul. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, tzur kol haolamim, tzadik bechol hadorot, האל הנאמן האומר ועושה, המדבר ומקיים, שכל דבריו אמת וצדק. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הנביאים ועל יום השבת הזה שנתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו לקדושה ולמנוחה לכבוד ולתפארת. על הכל אדוני אלוהינו אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך, יתברך שמך בפי כל חי תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
Amen.
As we gather together, we think of those in need of healing. You may have access to the Mishaberach list through the e-news that you received yesterday, but also you can follow the link in the comments. If you like to offer names, we invite you to please type them in the comments so we can all see them. So go ahead, begin typing, and don't forget to click enter. As together on page 371, we join in the Mishaberach blessing. On this Shabbat, as we think of those in need of healing, we also turn our prayers and thoughts to those who help in healing the first responders and health workers during this pandemic. May those who care for the sick with their hands, their voices, and their hearts be blessed with courage and stamina. May those who pursue healing through medical skills and knowledge be blessed with insight, patience, and compassion. And may all of us, the sick and the well, together find courage and hope. And let us say, Amen. The service for the reading of the Torah concludes with Etz Chaim on page 374. Etz Chaim As we prepare for our moment of remembrance, we continue on page 594. It is a fearful thing to love what death can touch, a fearful thing to love, hope, dream, to be and oh, to lose. A thing for fools, this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your love once lifted me, your word was gift to me. To remember this brings a painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing to love, what death has touched. Joining us on this Shabbat and remembering a loved one, we invite you to type their names in the comments. As a congregation, we are observing Shloshim period for our member Marshall Harris Weingarten, husband of Judy Weingarten, Joyce Fox, sister and sister-in-law of Ron and Judy Dubrov, R. Michael Wren, father of Christopher Wren, Marilyn Pittler, aunt of Howard and Gloria Pittler, Marilyn Stowe, mother and mother-in-law of Andrew and Jenna Stowe, and grandmother of Bella and Nathan, Nancy Broughton Johnson, sister of Betsy Wanger, and Stephen Shames, brother of Cindy Shames. And on this Shabbat, we remember the following yortzites of members of our congregation: Ruth Adler, Sylvia Backerman, Goldie Baker, Jean Ballot, Isidore Berger, Meyer W. Mickey Brown, Stephen Lawrence Brown, Myron Garfinkel, Marvin Gray, Ronald G. Hayongs, Rose Hoffman, Bertha Jacobs, Edna Karasik, Annabelle Lentz, Lloyd Lipoff, Noam Minkowski, Sadie Ozer, Arlene Plasmeyer, Dorothy Paslowski, Rose Francis Romeo, Lucille Rubin, Samuel Sater, Leah Shaw, Bernard Steinberg, Sally Turk Training, Alex Waknov, Helen Wolf. Zichronam Livracha, may the memories be for a blessing. Together we join on page 598 as we recite Kaddish Yatom, the mourner's Kaddish. Itgadal ve'itkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alema divra chirute ve'yamlich malchute, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעלמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה בריחו, לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דא אמירם בעלמה, ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן.
עושה שלום, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. עושה שלום, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל יושבי תבל, שים שלום עלינו.
Few announcements before we depart. We would like to thank everyone who's joined us from our area and from around the world. Special thanks to Leslie Zucker for the music and to our wonderful team of digital docents and everybody who's working from behind the scenes. Our next service is Friday, Shabbat service. It's Friday, February 26th at 6:30 p.m. And during this times, ksharim, connections are more important than ever. So we encourage you to connect into Beth Torah during these challenging times. Check in with us, your rabbis and staff, and also please check in with friends from CBT. We're all here for each other.
Purim is just 5 days away. Can you believe that? Join us on Zoom Thursday, February 25th at 7 o'clock for our virtual Purim celebration. It will be an evening of entertaining Megillah reading, spirited Purim singing, and fun costuming. Check your e-news. I believe a challenge was issued on the costume front as to what type of costume we would love to see. And last night too, Purim festivities, those things do not end there. Join us on Zoom Friday, February 26th at 10 a.m. for our first virtual Hamantash and Bake. So you can cook cookies in your own kitchen and schmooze with all of the rest of us in our own kitchens. I think that's such a great thing. The 2 Zoom links are in the e-news. Midweek song session due to all of the Purim festivities. We're going to take a break from midweek song session this week, but I will be back on March 3rd. And if you're not receiving the e-news to get all of this wonderful information and more, please let us know and we will get you on the list.
Thank you very much, Leslie. We conclude together singing En Keloheinu on page 626. En Keloheinu, En Kadonenu, Malkeinu, En Moshiachenu, En Keloheinu, En Kadonenu, En Malkeinu, En Moshiachenu, Mi Eloheinu, Mi Kadonenu, Mi Malkeinu, Mi Moshiachenu, En Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshiachenu. En Keloheinu, En Kadonenu, En Malkeinu, En Moshiachenu, En Keloheinu, En Kadonenu, En Malkeinu, En Moshiachenu. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Take care of
Stay
each other.